drive rideshare at night along the coast, mostly the stretch of Highway 1 between the last gas station before Big Sur and the little cluster of motels 20 minutes north. It pays better after midnight because nobody sane wants that route in the dark. All switchbacks and no guardrail in some spots. Fog that comes off the water so thick your headlights just bounce it back at you. I don't mind it. It's quiet, the tips are decent, and I've done it enough that I know where the road wants to throw you if you're not paying attention. About 4 months ago, I started getting pickup requests from an address I didn't recognize, which normally isn't strange, except this one kept coming back. Same address, always between 1 and 3 in the morning, always a short fare. Just a mile or two down the highway to one of the motels. The app would show a name, first initial only, like it does when someone hasn't filled out their profile. I'd pull up and there'd be a house set back from the road, dark, no porch light, nothing. The first time I figured the pin was off. GPS does that out there, the cliffs mess with the signal. I sat for 2 minutes, hazards on, before the app timed the ride out as a no-show and charged a cancellation fee to the account. I didn't think about it again until it happened the second time. Same address, 10 days later. By the fourth time, I'd started recognizing the driveway before I even looked at the app, which should have told me something. Cracked asphalt, a mailbox leaning at an angle, a chimney with no house that I could see attached to it, just black shapes, past where my headlights gave out. I asked a regular passenger about it once, an older guy who bartends at one of the motels and takes my car home most closing shifts. I described the spot. He got quiet in the way people do when they're deciding whether to tell you something. He said there'd been a house there, a real one, until a fire came through the hills maybe 6 years back and took most of that side of the road with it. Said the family who owned it never rebuilt. Didn't say more than that, and I didn't push because at that point in the night, I didn't especially want more detail than I already had. I want to be honest that a few of those pickups, I didn't just wait and leave. Twice I actually started the ride in the app, hit the button, because I told myself if I didn't, it'd just keep pinging me all night. Both times the trip timer ran like a real fare was in the car. Both times I checked my mirror out of habit, the way you do with any passenger, and both times the back seat was empty. And both times I finished out the 2 minutes to the motel with the trip screen showing an active ride and nobody in it, and ended it there, and drove off before I could think too hard about what I'd just done. The last time was different enough that I stopped taking that stretch after midnight entirely. I pulled up to the driveway, same as always, and for maybe half a second before my eyes adjusted, I could have sworn the house was still there. Full shape of it, a light on somewhere upstairs. Gone by the time I blinked. Back to the black shape of a chimney and nothing else. But I sat there for a solid minute with my hands not quite steady on the wheel, and the app pinged its usual cancellation warning, and I didn't wait for it. I just left. I called my rideshare company's support line the next day and asked, as normally as I could manage, if there was a way to block requests from a specific address instead of just a specific rider, since the account never seemed to be the same name twice. Support said that wasn't something they usually enable, but made an exception when I gave them the PIN. I don't know what I told them to get them to actually do it. I think I underplayed how badly I wanted it done, but it worked. That address doesn't ping my app anymore. I still drive the coast at night. I just don't take fares south of the second turnout past the gas station. And if anyone asks why, I tell them it's a blind curve. I don't like taking in the fog, which isn't a lie, just isn't the real reason either. We evacuated for the fire in October. Like everyone else on our side of the ridge, it was supposed to be 2 days, maybe 3, and it turned into 11 because the wind kept shifting and the containment lines kept slipping, and nobody wanted to say out loud that half the foothill neighborhoods might not be standing when it was over. Our house made it. I want to say that clearly, because most of what I'm about to describe only bothers me because the house was fine. If it had burned, none of this would have happened. And I think about that more than I'd like to. On night 4, I couldn't take the not knowing anymore, so I drove back. The checkpoint on the main road was staffed, sheriff's deputies turning cars around. But I knew a fire road that came in from the backside of the ridge, gated but not locked, that a lot of the longtime residents used for exactly this kind of thing. I'm not proud of it. I just needed to see the house standing with my own eyes instead of trusting a scanner frequency and a neighbor's group text. It was standing. Smoke haze thick enough that my flashlight beam looked solid in it, ash on every surface like gray snow, but standing untouched, windows intact. I went in through the garage, walked every room, and it was exactly how we'd left it in the panic of packing, down to a coffee mug still in the sink. I felt like an idiot for driving out there, honestly, and I left within 20 minutes, satisfied, and didn't go back again until the evacuation lifted. Here's the part I didn't think about until later. When we finally got let back in for good, our downstairs neighbor, the retired guy who never evacuated because his place was outside the mandatory zone, mentioned in passing that he'd seen my porch light on the night everything was still under evacuation order. Not the automatic one on a timer, the motion sensor one by the side door, the one that only trips if someone's standing right under it. He said he almost called it in, figured looters, but recognized my car's shape in the dark through the smoke and assumed I'd snuck back like half the street had and let it go. I told him he must have seen my car since I had snuck back, and he agreed that made sense, and I didn't think about it again until I was going through our home security app a few weeks later, clearing out weeks of smoke-triggered false alerts to free up storage. Most of the clips were nothing. Ash drifting past the lens, once a deer. But there was a clip, time-stamped, the night I drove out, and it showed my porch light kicking on, motion detected, right on schedule with what the neighbor described. The problem is the timestamp. It's 20 minutes before I even left our evacuation motel that night. I remember exactly what time I left because I checked the clock in the room, worried about making the fire road before deputies changed shifts. And it was 20 minutes after this clip. The drive out there is a solid 35 minutes, even with empty roads. There is no way I am the thing that light saw. The clip itself is nothing dramatic. Grainy night vision, ash static, the porch light flaring the way it does, and a shape passing under it toward the side door. There and gone in under 2 seconds. Too brief and too washed out to call a person or not call one. I've watched it more times than I should admit, trying to get a build, a height, anything, and I can't. I know my own house's motion sensor range. I know it only trips within about 6 feet of that door, And I know I was 35 minutes away in a motel room when whatever that is walked into range. I never told the neighbor the timestamp doesn't add up. He seemed so at ease, having an explanation that made sense, my car, my porch light, business as usual, that I didn't have the heart to hand him a different question instead of the answer he already had. I still have the clip saved. I look at it sometimes and try to convince myself it's a compression glitch, a timestamp bug, anything with a boring explanation, and some nights that almost works. I live in La Cañada, up near the foothills, close enough to the mountains that on a clear day you can see the dish antennas at JPL from my street. Most of the trails behind town are easy, well used, the kind of thing you do before work or after dinner. My regular route goes up past the old Cobb Estate ruins, the stone gates and the staircase that don't lead to a house anymore because the house burned down before I was born. It's a popular spot. People hike up just to see it. This grand staircase climbing through the trees to nothing weeds growing up through the steps. I've done that hike probably 300 times in the 6 years I've lived here. I know exactly how long it takes at dusk, how the light changes color behind the San Gabriels, which switchbacks get shadowed first. I go up most evenings after work, alone, because it's 15 minutes from my door and I like having that time to myself before I have to be a person again for the rest of the night. It started maybe 2 months ago on a totally unremarkable Tuesday. I was maybe 2/3 up past the second switchback below the old staircase, and I heard footsteps behind me on the trail. Not close, not urgent, just steady, matching my pace almost exactly. I assumed another hiker and didn't think much of it, except when I stopped to catch my breath. The footsteps stopped too, and when I started again, so did they. Always the same distance back. One switchback behind, no matter how I adjusted my pace. I told myself it was an echo off of the canyon wall, which happens up there. Sound does strange things bouncing between the ridges. I didn't turn around to check. I don't know why I didn't, except that some part of me didn't want to find out it wasn't an echo, and some other part of me didn't want to find out it definitely was, and either answer felt like it would ruin something about a trail I'd walked more times than I could count. It happened again 3 days later. Same spot, same distance, same steady pace matching mine. This time I stopped completely, stood still on the trail for a full minute, and the footsteps stopped exactly when I did and didn't resume until I did, which an echo should not be able to do, because an echo doesn't wait for you. I started varying my routine after that. Left earlier, left later. Took the trail from the other trailhead, so I'd approach the staircase from above instead of below. It didn't matter. Whichever direction I came from, somewhere around that same stretch near the ruins, the footsteps picked up behind me, always one switchback back, always matching my pace exactly. Stopping when I stopped. I asked a neighbor once, an older guy who's hiked that trail longer than I've been alive, if he'd ever noticed anything strange up by the estate ruins at dusk. He didn't ask me to clarify what I meant by strange, which I noticed at the time and think about more now. He just said the light does funny things up there this time of year, and that he tends to be off that particular stretch before the sun's fully behind the ridge, and left it at that. I didn't push him on it, the same way people around here don't push each other on a lot of things about those hills. Last week I finally turned around. Mid-hike, footsteps right on schedule behind me, and I just stopped and turned to look straight down the trail at the empty switchback where the sound was coming from. There was nothing there, which is what I expected, and also somehow not what I expected, because for a half second, right at the tree line near the old stone gate at the top of the ruins, I could have sworn something pulled back out of sight, quick, low to the ground, gone before I could get a second look or convince myself I'd actually seen it at all. I still hike that trail. I'm not willing to give it up over something I can't even describe clearly enough to be scared of properly. But I don't do it at dusk anymore, and I don't go up past the second switchback after 4 in the afternoon, no matter the season. And if anyone asks why I changed my schedule, I tell them it's about the heat, which in La Cañada in the summer is at least half true. East.